So previously, I've been trying to play around the weaknesses of Clarion Conqueror, but what if I just ignore them and play the artifact mana anyway? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today we're going to run back another Clarion Conqueror deck. This is a card that I have been very intrigued with, as it is objectively an incredibly powerful card that can shut down many strategies. But the downsides associated with it are just really high. You don't get to use artifact mana, you don't get to use One Ring, you don't get to use mana dorks. And so I've been trying to build all of these decks that are just working with it and trying to play around its ability the best that I can. Maybe using triggered abilities with things like Phyrexian Dreadnought. And I've tried, and I've kind of felt like all of those decks were mid. So what happens if we just play it with every 2 and a white hate bear known to mankind? And what if we just say, one of these bears is going to be good enough and have enough of an impact on the game that it won't matter if I end up shutting off my fast mana. And that is kind of today's experiment. So we are taking a mono white initiative deck. We're shoving 4x Clarion Conqueror into the main deck, which is something that might have been seen in the sideboard anyway, and we're going to see how this plays out. I am going to try Sheltered by Ghosts in the main here. This is supplemental removal so that we have Solitude plus Sheltered by Ghosts to answer a whole bunch of problems, and hopefully playing roughly 2 hate bears or maybe a chalice and a hate bear and then some follow-up threat or something like that is just enough to win a bunch of games. Then for the post-sideboard games, for all these Fair Demir decks that I've been seeing recently, we can just board out 4x Chalice of the Void, board in 4x Swords, maybe the last Sheltered by Ghosts if we feel like we need it, and just have a giant pile of removal that hopefully gets us there. So Edison asked to see one more Clarion Conqueror deck in action. Let's see if we learn anything new and interesting by doing this. Generally speaking, I'm of the opinion right now that Clarion Conqueror is probably a card that you shouldn't be playing in the main deck in Legacy, and it should be something that should be on your radar as a really strong sideboard option. But we'll see if this league changes my mind. Folks, if you need any Magic cards, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. They're awesome. I love them. I've got a list of Final Fantasy cards brewing that I need to order with. I think I've got a Kefka card that I need for EDH. And if you need any of those cards, promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order, and you always get free shipping to boot. Remember, if you're going to MagicCon Vegas, the TOA Magic booth will also have some of my stickers and tokens if you don't catch me in person. With that being said, let's battle. I am going to need one more mana for this hand to work. I'm going to keep this one, but this is a great example of how Clarion Conqueror can be really awkward, right? So if I go and draw a Clarion Conqueror and I play it and I lose access to Chrome Mox, that is my only white source, which is no bueno. Solitude is an okay pickup here. I think I'm going to junk one Seasoned Dungeoneer here. It's not super castable right now. Seasoned Dungeoneer goes under. We throw down Anointed Peacekeeper, which I'm currently planning on putting on Urza's Saga. We'll see if seeing my opponent's hand changes my mind, though. Ooh. Wow, that's a lot of targets. Man, this is a weird spot. I think the Maze of Ith doesn't matter because of Sheltered by Ghosts. I think the Urza's Saga isn't that big of a deal because of Sheltered by Ghosts as well. Maybe I just name Thespian Stage then? I don't know, I've got the Solitude, but my opponent has the crop rotation. They could naturally draw pieces and then use the crop rot for protection. Could just name the crop rotation, and then it costs 3 mana and becomes incredibly awkward. What about that? Yeah, what about that? I'm into it. And, Ward plus Sheltered by Ghosts makes, the Maze of Ith significantly less good. Alright. So, there's a stage. A new Chrome Mox. Okay. Sure. Going to end up being very strange. So my opponent names the Seasoned Dungeoneer, making that cost 6 mana. So this is probably a the plan has changed situation. Where I now just put this under here. go Sheltered by Ghosts, take out this Mox Diamond, go Sheltered by Ghosts again, take out the Disruptor Flute, and just get my life total over 20. Maze of Ith isn't producing mana. I still have a Solitude, which will either become hard castable or pitch castable pretty easily. Got a 3-turn clock. Notably here, I now have 2 separate instances of Ward too. So Maze of Ith, like, very much not relevant. Alright, there's Expedition map. My opponent can crack. Going for Tabernacle, which doesn't really make too much sense to me. Junks a Yavimaya. Oh boy. That is certainly a Magic the Gathering card that I have just drawn. I get to attack for 5. Now I can play Clarion Conqueror and shut off 3 separate pieces of artifact mana and still keep both of my creatures around. My opponent will only have 1 mana towards crop rotation, and they just discarded a Yavimaya. Yavimaya, as land drop, is 3 mana for crop rotation into Wasteland, which would beat me. Otherwise, this crop rotation is live with any mana source. I think it is correct to play this, but boy, this is fucking weird. Alright, so there's Maze of Ith. I will pay for my creatures. Solitude is a fine draw. The Clarion Conqueror can be mazed. This isn't actually changing my clock. Opponent is at 5. Fuck. Alright, are you good enough to see the line? Malevolent Rumble. They hit the Wasteland anyway. Cool. They are not playing it. Wow. Oh wait, hold on. Did they play the Yavimaya? Okay, they played the Yavimaya for a turn. Okay, cool. Then I win instead of losing. That is great. So this is a 0-1, right? So Solitude. You don't get to crop rotation. You can't activate the ability of that creature. Yeah. We take out the Eldrazi spawn, and now Anointed Peacekeeper gets to get in there. I liked the part where my opponent didn't kill us. And, like, we saw the Wasteland off their Malevolent Rumble, so, like, it was confirmed in the deck. They just had the line to Wasteland this and remove both of my creatures. Ugh. Anyway, Chalice out. Swords in, Disruptor Flute, and Sheltered by Ghosts are both probably good enough, and then we'll think about Wrath of the Skies. It's a good way to clear Urza Saga construct tokens and some other exploration Mox Diamond type stuff. Seasoned Dungeoneer is probably my worst card here. If I cut those and Chalice, I can play 1 Wrath of the Skies to round things out. White is a little tough for my deck. I don't know that I want 2 copies of Wrath of the Skies. I think I am fine with 1. I could also play a Miser's Seasoned Dungeoneer, and that would be okay as well. That was a weird game of Magic. Do not blame my opponent for missing the line that won them the game. Clarion Conqueror blanking my own mana sources. Not something super typical, right? This is awkward. I think I'll keep it. I just have some pretty okay tools. Anointed Peacekeeper is really taxed in this matchup, though. Malevolent Rumble is fine. Opponent keeps Exploration. This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Where if I play this card this turn, I blank my white mana. It does blank Mox Diamond and Eldrazi spawn, though. Wow, this is terribly awkward. I guess I can do it into Disruptor Flute still. Is that enough? I think I'm gonna hope that that's enough and go for it. I think I'm gonna keep the secondary threat and get rid of swords. Alright, there we go. So there's Exploration. Wasteland's totally fine here. We're sending in for 3. Opponent goes to 17, and I think I will cast Disruptor Flute in their draw step. Is Crop Rotation or Urza Saga, which I presumably will end up naming here, but again, I think I can wait until their draw step and then do this. Possible they don't have another land to go with this, but nothing has changed. So let's just make sure those constructs don't get into play. There's another Yavimaya. The opponent would have been getting the construct tokens. Thank you, Chromox. Very cool. So the kind of nice thing here is that as long as my Disruptor Flute and Clarion Conqueror stay in play, the thing that Urza's Saga fetches don't really do anything. That's going to be the remainder of that. This basic plains is actually huge, though, because it lets me cast both Swords and Anointed Peacekeeper, which were otherwise dead. So this can't... Well, I mean, it can get an Expedition map, but it's not doing anything super meaningful. I'm going to see what my opponent gets here. I will give them the extra point of life to have this information. Or what are you going to name with that? The One Ring? That's not in my deck, but it's probably... No, the Clarion Conqueror changes the math on that. That doesn't make sense. I don't know why that's in the deck, actually. If I am packing this in game 1. This doesn't make sense. Opponent has named Lauren of the Third Path, then played out in Ottawara. I think I am comfortable swordsing this with my mana to stay mana efficient here. Solitude is an okay pickup. So I think I'm just going to name Urza's Saga here. It is the singular card that can have the most impact on the game, in that it reduces the effectiveness of my Anointed Peacekeeper. The fear is that my opponent top decks 2 combo pieces in a row and I don't draw a white card. That would be the fear for taking the line that I did. At some point, if it looks like I have just deterministic lethal, I can Solitude this token if it's still around to push 3 damage through, but I don't want to do that immediately if I don't have to. Opponent can still activate the ability of Dark Depths. Looks like they are just passing the turn. This is still a 2-turn clock. I don't think playing Sheltered by Ghosts does anything other than making it so I survive a Merit Lage hit. Is that a fine thing? I guess that's a fine thing. I'll take out the Exploration, I guess. A weird draw like Life from the Loam happens. Opponent is at 4. There is Malevolent Rumble. Hey, there's exactly Life from the Loam. There's Urza's Saga. I have 4 in the air here, which is still lethal, so I don't think I take any other action regarding this Eldrazi spawn. Sure. And opponent exactly dies. We came up ahead. I won both games, but boy, this does not feel good, folks. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you want to see upcoming sets, if you want to understand commander brackets, or if you just want an awesome place to store all, and I mean all, of your deck lists, Moxfield is the place. You can organize all of your decks by folders, and you can even change the views. You like visual, they've got that. You like text, they've got that. Check out my Moxfield Pro Field if you want to see all, and I mean all, of the decks that I've been cooking up. Alright, I have what looks to be a pretty great opening hand here. Alice into Clarion Conqueror into Sheltered by Ghosts in a vacuum. We got some red Delver. Been playing against so much blue-black tempo recently. DRC is back though. Alice hits play. That's fantastic for me. I am basically taking a billion D damage this match. My opponent is just going to try to turn this into a 3-3 as quickly as possible. Yep. They're just trying to turn this into a 3-3 this turn if possible. That artifact will do it. You've got it. 15, and I'm going to keep taking damage from my Ancient Tomb. Let's play a dragon. The Chalice resolved, but my opponent has now had time to draw like a Daze or Force, and they did. So I am... Ooh, that's a threat that gets in through my Chalice. This is not great. That, however, is insane. Assuming no Daze. Daze will be incredible. Oh, fuck, I fucked it up. I needed to Chrome Mox fucking first. And float the mana. Chrome Mox Witch Enchanter, then play Sheltered by Ghosts. Fuck. Alright. I have to live with that. That mistake is so bad. I don't think I trade here because I have Sheltered by Ghosts. Okay, yep. So opponent did this in a way where the Corey Steel Cutter was not optimized. Another Chrome Mox. Cool. So Witch Enchanter can eventually remove Corey Steel Cutter. So if I'm willing to leave that there for a turn and take out DRC, I gain some more life and then I kill this. But Prowess is scary. No, I guess that doesn't really matter, right? Let's go bam. Take out that, and my opponent can't have 2 spells next turn. I will just send in for my 4 life. Opponent's at 14, I go to 9. I will take 2 to 3 points of damage, and then Witch Enchanter, Quarry Steelcutter, and be good against most things that aren't Murktide Regent. You have Brazen Borrower. God damn it. Yeah, that's not great. So now you're going to block and trade. Always Brazen Borrower. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I just cast Witch Enchanter. This turn, the 5th mana doesn't do me any good. I don't need to play around days here. I'm at 5. Blow up Quarry Steelcutter. Pass. Next turn I play Sheltered by Ghosts. I have a decent-sized lifelinker. Yep. This is fine. I just take this hit so that I can play Sheltered by Ghosts. And my opponent concedes. I don't think that one's over because I think you can still top deck Murktide Regent. Assuming that's in the deck. There was more game there than I was expecting, though. Okay. So Chalice was obviously perfectly fine there, but 4x Swords to Plowshares is just better than that. And then I think Seasoned Dungeoneers are pretty slow. I think I'm going to trim one for another Sheltered by Ghosts. And I might need to play Wrath of the Skies in respect of Quarry Steelcutter. Just clearing out a couple of monks. I think that's fine. When I'm on the play, I can maybe play Seasoned Dungeoneer. On the draw, it's really rough. Initiative creatures are just not good in Legacy anymore. This is a keep. Cavern of Souls is perhaps not at its best here. Really awkward to play that out on turn 1. That gives me something different to do with turn 1. I will almost certainly just attempt 2 swords that. I think given how this hand looks, I don't think I have time to just sit and play around days with this spell. I also just don't want the graveyard to grow. Fantastic. We can probably take that as there's no days in my opponent's hand, meaning Archon is safe-ish for the next turn. Quarry Steelcutter, no immediate follow-up play. How do we feel about City of Traders to save the life? I think pretty good. If this resolves and does not immediately just eat a lightning bolt, this greatly dampens Quarry Steelcutter. But, you know, a lightning bolt into a ponder makes this look pretty bad. Okay, great. So now there comes this question of, like, do I play Seasoned Dungeoneer right now? I think so. It doesn't seem like my opponent has lightning bolt. Otherwise, like, their turn could have been so much better. Brainstorm is, in theory, fine. Channel Land does 4 damage. Means I get Wastelanded and my Seasoned Dungeoneer is worse. But I don't think I want to give up Archon. I just intentionally skip a land drop this turn to incentivize my opponent to Wasteland me when it's not actually all that great. Tamiyo. Sure. Sheltered by Ghosts on the Tamiyo? I think so. Yeah, put that on human. 2 Sheltered by Ghosts. I don't want my Ancient Tomb to get Wastelanded, so I'm not going to play around days on this. That's fine. Like, this Wasteland is just telegraphed. My attack has no point. I guess I will just hold back. The Tamiyo clues are, in theory, not that big of a problem. So I get Wastelanded. Opponent did not transform Tamiyo. Sorry, did not make a clue prior to transforming Tamiyo. Clarion Conqueror is fucking weird. I think it's correct to just play Clarion Conqueror. My Archon makes this Lotus Petal very awkward. Alright. So, yeah. We give a love tap to Tamiyo. Tamiyo at 3 could return a cantrip or whatever. Lightning Bolt would be the scariest thing here. My opponent can go Lightning Bolt minus land minus. Okay, there is a friend. Okay, no, they are not taking the line that clears my board. Is there a world where I want to trade? No, because then Urza's Bauble can cantrip. Ooh, that might be what I'm doing with this turn instead. Nah, I think I will just get this going. I just know that it happens, and it sets me up for another land drop. I'm perfectly happy with. Now I attack Tamiyo down, which is great. Another Quarry Steelcutter. Be a great time for that last card to be a bauble. Negative. We win. My deck feels terrible. It feels like I'm tripping all over myself, but we haven't dropped a game yet. So there's that. Back in my day, Chalice of the Void on one won games of Legacy sometimes. Go to sleep, Grandpa. I've kept a very awkward opening hand. As long as I draw something relevant in my next 2 draw steps, I think this is likely to be pretty good. But sometimes I just end up taking 1,000,000,000 damage to play a Seasoned Dungeoneer on turn 3. That's great. I think I'm going to show that land and pass the turn and not show Cavern. I think Cavern comes down when I play Seasoned Dungeoneer. No end of turn Surveil land. Second land drop. Orcish Bowmasters is a card that exists. Just throwing it out there. That's fine. This is so bad into Bowmasters that I think I just play Seasoned Dungeoneer immediately. No, it's resolving. We have to worry about Bowmasters into something like Sheoldred's Edict that ignores Chalice. Pick up Plains. Pass turn. Now we're getting some action. Okay, not Orcish Bowmasters. Ooh, opponent liked their card. That third land drop. We're in Grixis colors. That's a hell of a good turn. 1-drop creature to follow it up would be pretty hot. Ponder, sure. So this is going to force us down the right side of the Undercity, which is fine. I'm still getting okay value here. I will not take Cavern of Souls. I will take Anointed Peacekeeper. I could sit here and think for a long time about in which order I am supposed to play these cards, but I'm just going to do this. So if I want to play 2 cards this turn, I name Daze. Sure. And I will go City into Elite Spellbinder. And I think just take the Fatal Push. Got enough power here that I am not really sweating a flipped Tamiyo. Yeah, that's fine. I actually think this stash token is like quite relevant, right? Because that lets me hard cast Solitude without having to sweat the extra white source. Send on in, see what happens. This could just be a 3-mana Fatal Push. It is. This gives me a window to just take this Tamiyo out. Do I want to do that if I have Caracas? I think it's fine. No, not Ancient Tomb. Let's Solitude. Guaranteed take that out and not have to play that Tamiyo sub-game the entire time. Now, I think with 3 bodies here, I don't have to worry too much about something like Murktide Regent flooping into play and taking the initiative and just running away with the game. There could still be some like multi-creature turns here that could be pretty scary. Bowmasters is, I guess, annoying. I'll have 2 different X1 creatures, counting the skeleton that I'm about to get. I'm just going to assume that this Daze is gone. Oh, your Thoughtseize misses. That Ponder is still probably there. Now let's see what happens. Alright, so that's everything that I know about my opponent's hand. That's a shuffle, that's great for me. There's a Fatal Push. No creature for my opponent. Now I've got 2 creatures on board. Threatening Throne of the Dead 3. Clarion Conqueror. I mean, it's literally just a body at this point. When it goes to 8, I think I'm just going to use my treasure token here to leave Caracas untapped and not give up a land. I'm about to shut this off anyway. Alright, 3 creatures in play. Initiative approaching Throne of the Dead 3. A new Fatal Push. Sure. And there is the concession. I did not see a threat from my opponent the entire game there, right? I mean, unless you count Tamiyo. Makes it a little harder for me to evaluate Chalice and Swords. So we might be playing against something very similar to what we played against last time, but the Molten Collapse could indicate that my opponent is a little bigger, and there are going to be more copies of things like Kaito. I think I'm going to board Chalice out and Swords in. I am less sure about these 3 cards for extra copies of Seasoned Dungeoneer until I have a slightly better feel for how controlling my opponent's deck is actually going to be. This seems fine. I would like to draw another white land. It's fine. There's timelines where my opponent just fucking takes Lotus Petal here. They just need a little time to set up. Or if they have a wasteland and they want to bait me into playing Witch Enchanter on 1. Negative, I lost my top end instead. Ooh. I think that means I slow my roll a turn here. I was planning on just coming out guns a-blazing, but I I don't think that makes sense anymore. Second land from the opponent. There's some manipulation and a quick fetch afterwards, and more manipulation. A third one. Cavern gonna do some work. Get a feel for what's happening over there. Costing 2 more. Slightly inconvenient. That doesn't price my opponent out of Fatal Push. Still probably my name here. Opponent's hand, not super strong. It can be improved a lot by a Brainstorm, though. So Bowmasters is currently a removal spell for Anointed Peacekeeper. Fatal Push is currently castable. I don't want this Archon to eat Fatal Push. I think I go ahead and do this. And my opponent can fetch and Fatal Push this one in response. Yep. There's another Fatal Push now. Okay. My opponent doesn't have Revolt yet, but I guess they can do it with a Bowmaster block. I will still name Fatal Push. I guess I know the coast is clear. I could name Orcish Bowmasters, or just do this. I guess I have to do this one, because I don't have white mana or Archon without taking a bunch more damage. This deck is surprisingly hard to play for a Stompy deck. Alright, opponent is just going to do the Brainstorm, which will probably attempt to get rid of Force of Negation. Alright, that's a tapped land. Ow. Now I go ahead and do this. My opponent wants to play a Bowmasters. They can do it in response here. Otherwise, I can name their Bowmasters. But if they do their Bowmasters and ping Anointed Peacekeeper, I just don't attack with it this turn. So it's overall pretty awkward. And if they do play the Bowmasters, then I can just name Fatal Push again and take that Fatal Push out of castable range. Double Force of Will. So they had Force of Will, Force of Will, Force of Negation there. Okay, so I will name Orcish Bowmasters here, making that cost 4. Sending in for 5. And I think I just play this as an ETB tapped land in respect of this wasteland that is coming. That wasteland might just be mana for my opponent. So I know they have Force of Will, which makes this turn a little awkward. I think this is correct. It's just really fucking weird. I believe I send in with everything, and then they will cast a 4-mana Bowmasters. Yes. That is their 1 spell per turn. So they ping my creature. I let them double block. Now I know that they can't Force of Will. So I Solitude. Send the card to exile. And my opponent's at 7 when that's all said and done. I've dealt 13 points of damage to myself. And I have lethal through a blocker. And my opponent probably can't put 2 creatures into play. I'm so incredibly upset that this deck is winning every game without dropping anything. This deck is bad, right? This deck building is bad. I made the deck. I can blame myself. But scoreboard? Okay, let's see. My opponent has mulliganed. I am on the draw. I have 3 mana. I can play a thing on turn 2. I can't play a follow-up thing. I think this hand is pretty medium. I think I can get a similar but more consistent hand. This I'll keep. I think this is better. This gives me the option to play something on turn 1 if I believe that I am in danger. Looks like we're playing against some sort of lands or depths deck. Alright. Wonder if I can snipe that Life from the Loam at some point. I'm gonna give myself a chance to snipe that. And if I can't snipe it, I just play Seasoned Dungeoneer and let the initiative do initiative things. You've got a Blast Zone. Seems good. Solitude's an okay pickup. I think this is Ancient Tomb. I think my life total isn't super likely to matter here. Whereas I would like to be able to just play basic planes next turn and slam another Seasoned Dungeoneer. Alright, there's Life from the Loam again. There's now 2 of them. We're not gonna snipe those forever. Nothing threatening has come out of the graveyard yet, though, so at least we've got that going for us. I'm going to go left here. There is a chance that my opponent has Swords to Plowshares in game 1. Hey, it's Swords to Plowshares in game 1. I think this is just very clearly another Seasoned Dungeoneer, and then I can play double Elite Spellbinder in a minute. I would like to just stay maximally aggressive. Oh, it's big. Pretty nice. Take your card. Notably, this is target opponent. Awkward. That's not great for me either. On my extra card. That's great. So this is my 6 mana turn. I will Anointed Peacekeeper. Wow. I had thoughts about just naming Mazavith. But now it probably just has to be the One Ring with a second one there. I will get through by going wide. Send in. I know that my opponent has Protection Witch Enchanter. Witch Enchanter is a below average draw. So my opponent loses 1 to the One Ring. Are we dredging? Dredging becomes slightly worse with an Archon in play. Alright, they are going to draw cards with the One Ring. And Exploration is pretty damn great. Another Mazavith. Okay. So I now get to Throne of the Dead 3. This is Clarion Conqueror time. Just shut off Mox Diamond. And the One Ring draws completely. Fine. Now I will get a basic land. So I have... Oh, but I get 1 spell. Of Archon. Okay. And this is a pretty good 1 spell. Take the basic planes. And now I get 2 Seasoned Dungeoneer triggers. 1 goes here. 1 goes on Anointed Peacekeeper. Sheltered by Ghosts. I don't think I need that with Solitude in hand. Anointed Peacekeeper. I will keep that one. And that's enough for the concession from my opponent. I'm going to be honest. That went so well. Like, these Life from the Loam dredges could have been so much worse. The One Ring draws could have been scarier. I do think we got a little lucky. So the easy one here is Chalice of the Void out, Swords to Plowshares in. And then I think I'm looking at all 3 of these as well. I don't think I'm going to Leyline of the Void. It's only good against Life from the Loam. Or I guess I should say primarily good against Life from the Loam. It doesn't have any impact on, like, the One Ring and the primary combo stuff either. I think I go down, like, 3 Seasoned Dungeoneers, even though Seasoned Dungeoneer was just nutty in that specific game. I could go, like, bam, 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 and keep a balance. But I think when I'm on the draw, like, going down some Seasoned Dungeoneers because they're expensive and can get stuck in my hand is fine. And I could think about Wrath of the Skies for Exploration as well. This has 3 turns worth of oomph. I'm going to keep it, despite the fact that this is a 5-card hand, as it currently stands. I would really just love to draw basic planes or a Chrome Mox for my first turn here. Saga. Chrome Mox, baby. Yes. Opponent's hand is good. Clarion Conqueror. That's a thing. It's a thing that I'm ignoring because this cavern is going on human. Ooh. Those are some hits for Life from the Loam. Fuck. Yeah. No, that's why I said I wanted to draw basic planes. And now my opponent just has, like, Wasteland Life from the Loam stuff going on. Okay, I think I'm greater than 90% to lose this game. I am going to pass the turn once without making a play. Because sometimes my opponent gets another Mox Diamond here. I spike a white land, I stick Clarion Conqueror, I shut off 2 Mox Diamonds, and my opponent's deck doesn't do anything for a little while. And by doesn't do anything, I mean they just make natural land drops. Straight up Zurin Orb. Okay, now I think that I've missed yet another land drop. I can comfortably concede here. And by that I mean, like, a single land drop doesn't do anything against Wasteland Life from the Loam lock, which my opponent has live. I think that extra turn of tempo is worth a lot. What if I went down a Swords or 2 for Wrath of the Skies? Kinda hard to cast, though. Something approximating this is fine. I like you, Clarion Conqueror, but maybe not that much. This is a stinker. This does not cast any spells. Probably just gets Wastelanded to death. This is the best hand so far. It's a 5-card hand. Probably Chrome Mox, Imprint, Ancient Tomb, Peacekeeper, Peacekeeper. We'll put the Solitude back in the deck for the purposes of Throne of the Dead 3 much, much later in the game. I kind of feel like the win and loss for this third game is likely going to be outside of my control. All right. This is tough. Urza Saga is the scariest thing in the short term, but I think I just need to name Life from the Loam immediately. So that keeps my opponent from playing Life from the Loam on turn 1. So they probably go Mox Diamond, discard a bad land, Exploration into Urza's Saga. And then I end up having to name Urza's Saga with Anointed Peacekeeper the second time around. Or do I? That's a super interesting draw. 17. I really just want to be attacking for 6 next turn. I really just want to be attacking for 6 next turn. Ooh. Awkward. We got Thespian Stage and Life from the Loam over there. I think I named Life from the Loam. I think that being expensive matters, and then I can fully Disruptor Flute Urza Saga. Unless my opponent just like ignores their Urza Saga tokens and just goes for 4 mana Life from the Loam. Fuck. Well, I guess I'm glad that I kept that then. Double fuck. Land! Land! Land ho! That was pretty fucking important. Oh man. We got Vigilance. Might as well use it. No damage, obviously, from the One Ring. 16. Urza Saga happens. Now we'll see if my opponent Thespian Stage copies it here. Might just float the mana and do Life from the Loam nonsense. Could also just be Expedition Map very easily, I think. Yeah. Oh, fuck. Oh. No. So, this is Dark Depths pretty much immediately. Maybe there's some timelines where they don't go for it for a little while, and I get to Disruptor Flute Thespian Stage? This is not great. Absolutely feeling that mulligan to 5 cards. Alright, there's the Dark Depths. Are you going for it now? No. No fear. Send in. They have called my bluff. They block. I die. The wheels have come off the train. We have bled. They're now 3-1. So I think this hand is going to be pretty close to a Force of Will check hand, where if I just go turn 1 Archon followed up with turn 2 Anointed Peacekeeper, I think that rolls over a lot of decks. But as soon as my opponent Force of Will's Archon, I think this entire hand falls apart and is very close to unplayable. So this is going to be a low agency game, probably on both sides. And that just is what it is. Imprint Witch Enchanter, all Ancient Tomb. If I get... I guess I don't have to worry about getting Wastelanded, right? Because it's going to enter tapped. Alright. It's an Ancient Tomb Mirror. It's actually not what I want to see. Imprinting a Magus of the Moon. You've got it. It is tragic that I have 6 mana, but I can't play both of these this turn because of my own Archon. They lovey. Yeah, so I'm gonna name Pyrogoyf, I think. Feel pretty good about that. Again, can't cast another spell. And then I will name Pyrogoyf again on my following turn. That's just a speed bump. Then my opponent plays a tapped land. This is actually kind of neat, because I can get this land into play without sacrificing this. Send in. Alright, opponent goes to 11. Now I'll do this again. I will name... yeah. We were honestly a little lucky here. My opponent's deck is going to be full of 3-drops that are more aggressive than Magus of the Moon, and that like could potentially trade in combat with Anointed Peacekeeper. But I think I just name Magus of the Moon so that my opponent can't cast that next turn, and then I just crash in for enough damage that Pyrogoyf isn't going to end up beating me. Alright, Chalice out. Swords in. Sheltered by Ghosts needs to come in. And then we will think about these cards. With 4x Clarion Conqueror, I am unsure how much I need Disruptor Flute for the One Ring. It may just be that like Broadside and the One Ring together are enough that I still need them. Yeah, I think I'm going to do something that looks like that. And I think I'll leave Wrath of the Skies in the sideboard. That one's pretty close. This is a hand of Magic the Gathering cards. In the hypothetical world where I keep this, I cannot play Clarion Conqueror with double Chrome Mox here. So it's Imprint, Lotus Petal, Archon. I will have 2 cards in hand beyond that. I don't think this is worth it. So this is turn 1 Anointed Peacekeeper, probably. I'm not in love with it. I don't think I'm going to mulligan further here. But this is not great. Yep. Very glad I didn't keep the first hand then. City of Traders is not terrible. I'm just doing this and passing the turn. That's the One Ring. I have some ability to mitigate that. Take your card. I think this is off the Ancient Tomb here. And let's see how bad this is for me. Fury deals 4, unfortunately. That always kills this. I guess I am naming the Fury. Make my opponent's turn more awkward. But I think this is just going to be a very relevant play draw difference. Oh, maybe that's not true. Maybe my hand is just like not good enough either way on 6. All right, down to 17. Draw 2. All right, there was a Sokenzen draw in there. There's Fable, which I can take out with a Witch Enchanter. I imagine my opponent's just gonna... Oh, fuck. I just have to Solitude that. Otherwise, that is going to kill me. It takes a little while, but... Like, I know that Fury plus that is coming on the following turn. Don't think I get to wait there. Alright. Yeah. 14. I can make the Fury cost 4 more, which would be all of my opponent's mana for turn, minus, like, a treasure token. But that just feeds the Fury an extra creature. This is just a bad spot, honestly. I might just be doing that anyway. Gives my opponent better value for their cards, but maybe they draw things that they don't use if I tie up their mana in this Fury. Alright, they're going to draw their bonus cards first before resolving the Fable trigger, which is reasonable. Like, my out here might just be my opponent killing themselves to the One Ring. I don't think is super likely. But like, between Ancient Tomb, Sundering Eruption, the One Ring, maybe I could squeak a win out. I think it's super unlikely, though. What? How did that just happen? 2 more to cast, 2 more to cast. Hold on. Or sorry, was that a separate Fury? It was not the Fury from Exile. That must have been what happened. Alright, delete Spellbinder. Broadside getting rid of that One Ring is probably the scariest thing. So I guess I will do that. My opponent has me dead in 2 turns to just cast Fiery Confluence at my face. I imagine I'm going to see Fiery Confluence deal 1 damage to Elite Spellbinder. Oh, that works too. Fuck. Yeah. That just throws 6 at my face. Yeah. Oh, that was another removal spell there too. Yeah, no, that's horrifying. Now my opponent has lethal on board. And they yeet a Chrome Mox. Honestly, they didn't need it. Araka's not gonna do it there. But now I'm on the play. I know about Fiery Confluence. Do I want Seasoned Dungeoneer when I'm on the play as another aggressive threat? I'm not sure. I kind of just want to disrupt, but I'm probably the beatdown in the matchup. My opponent has like the One Ring and Broadside and all these Fiery Confluences to control the game as we go late. I think that means that I'm just rocking this like this. That has no threats. This would be a Seasoned Dungeoneer. Because this was a change I was thinking about making. Even then, I don't know if the hand's keepable. It's pretty close. This is a mulligan. This is probably fine. But my opponent gets to do the first thing. I don't think I want to play Anointed Peacekeeper on 1. This decision is really important and very tough. Because I can play Anointed Peacekeeper into Seasoned Dungeoneer on turns 2 and 3, and then have a Cleric that explores with protection and keep sheltered by ghosts. Or I can play the Archon early, and then put Sheltered by Ghosts on it, and then follow up with Seasoned Dungeoneer. Seasoned Dungeoneer is a way for me to ignore the Blood Moon effects, which have probably largely been boarded out for stuff like Dead Gone. Oh, wow, this is tough. There is also Archon on 1, into Anointed Peacekeeper on 2, bin Seasoned Dungeoneer, hope to play Sheltered by Ghosts afterwards. Just try to get out ahead of my opponent. That could just be the line. That might be the line that wins the most. I'm just not happy about it. So, With 3 toughness, neither one of these creatures eats it to dead. My opponent does have a lot of non-basic lands that will enter tapped. That's my opponent's one spell. Playing a land that would ETB tapped, and playing an ETB tapped land. I ignore that card because of my Archon. 18, 2, 3, Anointed Peacekeeper. Name Broadside, I guess. Fiery Confluence. Still a problem, though. Cool. This was the dream. This is what I was playing towards. Now I Sheltered by Ghosts and take out the Chrome Mox, and that takes out the untapped red source, so that neither Fiery Confluence is castable. That is exactly what I wanted to happen. 4 mana. Spirit Guide is rough, because it has to basically just be Spirit Guide. Otherwise, the red lands in that deck enter tapped. That's savage. Now I probably lose. I mean, that helps, but there's still going to be a Broadside on an empty board. Another Broadside and Fiery Confluence beyond that. Yikes. Fiery Confluence is a hell of a drug. So I can make the second Broadside harder to cast, make the ability harder to use, but at some point my opponent just casts a Fiery Confluence, domes this, hits me for 4, and it just doesn't matter. 3 mana, 4 mana. We're done. We're done. Right? I guess I could draw Sheltered by Ghosts. That would be pretty okay. I think you just attack me, yeah. So I take it all, and then my opponent can just Fiery Confluence 3 damage to all creatures, leave themselves with the Pyroglyph in play. Oh no, they're just holding open something else. Not great. I think we're just dead. Yeah, we're not beating that. So we started off very strong with a 3-0, and then the wheels fell off at the end, but that was a really good league. Even both of our losses were 1-2s, not 0-2s. All right. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Passing marks, but it gets a parent-teacher conference. I think this deck is too awkward. The Archon with single spell every turn absolutely comes up when playing this style of deck, and that's one of those things you just accept because Archon can be so incredibly strong. But when you combine that with the awkwardness of Clarion Conqueror, you have multiple cards that make your fast mana worse, and there's a lot of deck building restrictions that go into playing Clarion Conqueror. You don't get to just play something like the One Ring, and we saw in that last round how powerful the One Ring is in Ancient Tomb decks, and that's something we've seen on the channel plenty of times before. So I think this is enough for me to go like, hey, you probably shouldn't be playing Clarion Conqueror in the main deck in Legacy. We've taken a bunch of reasonable shots at doing so. This deck looks passable, but I think as you increase the sample size of games you play with something that looks like this, I think it is going to feel worse and worse over time. We ran a little hot at the beginning, and admittedly, one of our opponents missed a chance to essentially win the game on the spot by wastelanding us and letting Tabernacle kill 2 of my creatures, and I feel like we got away with murder there. So, fine overall, F&M ready, but I don't think this one has long-term potential, and I wouldn't recommend spending a lot of time trying to tune this further. As far as individual cards in the deck, I feel very awkward about this Wrath of the Skies. I boarded it in or thought about boarding it in a handful of times. It may just be with like 12 colorless lands in the deck that this is not reasonable, especially if Clarion Conqueror is going to shut off Chrome Mox and Lotus Petal as mana sources for this. So I wish I had ran something else in those 2 slots overall. I think there's just enough removal in the deck. Maybe you play a couple of different threats so you can adjust if, say, you've got a Bowmaster matchup and you know that Elite Spellbinder isn't going to be super reasonable. But this was enjoyable and a fine deck overall. Alright folks, if you have any thoughts, throw them down in the comments below. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. If you need some cards, you know where to go. Alright, see ya!